This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, December 5th show. Each week, I share expert advice and inside knowledge on how today's events and our local economy can affect your money. If you're listening to my show at a different time, you are listening to a rebroadcast. To talk with any of the guests I have in studio or any suggestions on future topics, please call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And one of my favorite guests is back with us. Unfortunately, not face-to-face with her in studio because she is a very busy lady, but I have the privilege to have her on the phone. Denise Lones, business building expert and real estate analyst. Denise, thank you so much for taking time with me again.
Oh, I'm always available for you, Tina.
And I'm excited today for our show. We're talking about foreign investors and the exciting things that's bringing for us and our market. So before we get started, I want to give a little bit of background about Denise. Denise is founding partner of the Lones Group, and Denise brings over 2 decades of experience in the real estate industry with expertise in strategic marketing, business analyst, branding, new home project planning, product development, and agent broker coaching and training. Denise is nationally recognized as the source for all things real estate. Denise's background is residential real estate sales and management, including an impressive list of awards. Denise was recently nominated by Inman News as one of the 100 most influential real estate leaders in the country. Denise is a strong and respected voice in the real estate community. And again, it's always my pleasure and excitement to talk with you, Denise. So Denise, you come in every year and you come out and talk about your predictions. And last year you talked about foreign investment increasing dramatically in 2015. And I would like for you to share with my listeners, if you could, did that happen?
You know, I've been talking, Tina, about foreign investors buying in the United States and specifically in Washington State for about the last 4 or 5 years. And last year, one of my predictions was that the foreign investment was going to reach its highest level ever. And in fact, it has. And let me just share a little bit. You know, foreign investment we saw a lot of foreign investment originally start up in Canada. And the reason I'm talking about Canada, specifically Vancouver, is because we're all on that I-5 corridor, right? And you get up to the border, and then you're in Canada, but we are Vancouver, Seattle, Los Angeles, we're all big port cities. And the port cities have been attracting the foreign investor for a lot of years. And in 2015, wow, the foreign investment dollars went through the roof. In fact, there was $104 billion in terms of volume of residential sales to foreigners in 2015. But what's really interesting is that if we go back, let's say we go back to 2009, there was $39 billion. So to go from $39 billion in residential sales to foreigners, going all the way up to that $104 billion, that's monumental, and that's only in 6 years. So, you know, one of the things I point out about, you know, foreign investors is that obviously different countries like to invest in Washington State for different reasons, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But there's a real trend right now of families from other countries moving to America to Americanize their families and to provide great education for their children and to retire in areas like the Great Pacific Northwest. And Washington State is really, we're going to see some really incredible things in Washington State because we just have so many people coming here and investing, and the foreign dollar has topped its highest level ever. So it's not a surprise at all.
And, and when they're coming, our employment opportunity is just unbelievable. So it's, with all of the opportunities with Amazon and Microsoft. But it's, it's interesting when you really think about it, because I always thought, wow, these, all of these foreign buyers, they all have great income and they've got, strong work ethics and they're, making good money. And I thought, well, the reason why is because of the best are the ones that make it over here. And, when you're talking about the ones that are actually coming here and moving here with their families. So they're great buyers to work with and great opportunity for our real estate market. So where are all these investors coming from, Denise?
Well, we've got a large number of investors coming. I'll give you the top 5 countries that are investing right now in the United States as a whole. And then a little bit later on, we'll talk about specifically Washington State. But the major countries of origin of our buyer base come from, first and foremost, is going to be China. So China is spending a lot of money in the USA on real estate. And the one thing I do want to mention about the Chinese buyer is they're coming here, and almost 80% of the transactions that they do are all cash.
Yes.
Not to mention that their average sale price is above $800,000. So they're buying property. They're buying big property. They're buying property in prime locations. And they're also doing what's called legacy investing. And legacy investing is where they might have 3 kids and they're coming over and they're buying properties to hold for their children for later on. So we have China. We have Canada. The difference between the Chinese buyer and the Canadian buyer is that the Canadian buyer is investing in a lot of vacation resort areas, whereas the Chinese buyer is investing to live. Then we have number 3 on the list, which, again, we've got India, we've got Mexico, we have United Kingdom. And what's very interesting is that the Chinese buyer in 2010, the 9% of all residential sales to foreign investors was to the Chinese market, and now today that has jumped up to well over 16%. So it's really showing that, and there's a reason why we're going to talk about in a little bit, but that foreign investment from China into the Pacific Northwest is extremely strong right now, and that affects everything, because that affects your demand and your supply, which then gets those house prices and those condo prices going up.
Yes, yeah. So what about the profile of the foreign investors?
Well, foreign investors are, they're educated. They are financially astute. They're upscale. They know what they want. They're willing to pay for it. They're willing to pay for location. They're willing to pay, by the way, a lot of foreign investors shop school districts, which is really interesting. The other thing is that some of the foreign investors are coming to live and some of them are coming to play. And that's back to that China-Canada thing. But during 2014, 2015, the average price that foreigners were paying for a house was about $499,000, just under that $500,000 mark, which is in many of our counties and areas, that's quite high.
Yes.
Maybe not in Seattle.
Not in the Bellevue, Seattle area that I'm at, yes.
No, exactly. But in reality, when we look at average prices throughout a state, for example, that's pretty high.
Yes.
The overall average house price, if we go nationally, the overall average house price in that time period was $255,000. And foreign investors almost double that, or get close to that anyways, with $499,000. But then again, your average price for the Chinese buyer is over $820,000. So the profile of this foreign investor is smart. They've got money. They want to invest it, and they want the American lifestyle.
Yes. So you've talked before in previous shows about the opportunities in Eastern Washington, because you'd mentioned vacation home with the Canadians coming in and buying vacation homes. Are you seeing more of the Canadians buying in our market over here, or more in Eastern Washington, or both?
Well, the Canadian buyers right now, because of the Canadian dollar, the Canadian dollar right now is having some challenges.
Yes.
So we'll find that right now, today, when this is broadcast, that the Canadians are kind of holding back. They're waiting. They're watching. But what the Canadians are doing is they're still going on vacation here. They're still falling in love with our areas here. So what I also predict, one of the predictions I'm having for my 2016 predictions is, as the Canadian dollar strengthens, we're going to see a surge of these Canadian buyers come back into the marketplace in our own area, whereas right now they're on hold. So that's a really interesting. That's a really interesting fact, because we still have such high demand from this foreign investor. And even if we take Canada out of the equation, we still have Mexico. You still have all these other countries that still are wanting to invest.
Yes.
And Washington State also has another issue, and that is that we have a lot of Californians that are coming up here as well because of the water issues down there. We can chat about that if we have time, but Washington State is a hot ticket item right now for sure.
Yeah, and so Denise, you had mentioned about the dramatic increase in the investors from China. Can you explain to my listeners a little bit more and explain why we're seeing that big increase and how it's going to affect our area here?
Okay, so one of the things that's really getting the Chinese buyer excited about not just Washington State, but the United States of America, is that there is an immigrant investor program. And that program, it's called the EB5 program. And under the EB5 visa program, if somebody makes a $500,000 investment in what is called a regional center, that basically allows the foreign investor to now qualify for the green card without the constraints of having to set up and manage a U.S. business. And the program that they had in the past, of course, was the program where you'd have to set up a business, manage a business. And there are a lot of people that didn't want to do that. They just want to come live here, and they don't mind investing here, but they want to invest in their home. And the immigration option now allows these investors to live in any U.S. state and engage in a business or employment or any activity of the investor's choosing, or they can come here just to retire under this EB5 program.
Okay.
Now, I do want to explain something, because I also am from the Canadian market. So, over 25 years ago, when I was in the Canadian market, what I experienced up there in the Vancouver marketplace is Vancouver had a very similar program. And that is when we saw the surge of the buyers coming from China to also buy and invest in real estate and be able to stay and work and live and retire and enjoy. And that opened up, that was incredible for changing. That forever changed the landscape of real estate and real estate prices in the Vancouver area. And what I'm seeing happen now under the EB5 program is very similar to what I saw 20 years ago happen in Vancouver. So the EB5 program, basically what happens is the investor has to invest in what's called a regional center. And there's regional centers all over the state of Washington. So somebody comes in and they can say, okay, where do I want to live? How much do I want to invest? Wonderful. It's a great way for this investor, this person that wants to live here, to come and live here, work here, play here, retire here.
Makes total sense. So Denise, I got to take us to commercial, but coming up next on the Money Hour, don't turn the station, because we're going to continue our conversation with Denise Lones, and we're going to continue talking about international buyers and the great effect that it's having right here on our market, right here at 11:50 a.m. KKNW after the short break.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, December 5th show. I am dedicated to you, my listeners, providing you with the tools needed to make informed decisions on matters that affect your money. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. You can call the show at 1-855-400-1150 or go online to themoneyhour.com and continue conversation with Denise Lones, business building expert and real estate analyst, and very well highly respected in our local market here for her predictions of what's coming up in the market. And today we're talking about international buyers and the effect that it has in our local market. And Denise, we've had a lot of conversations. So if you have not tuned in for the entire show, you want to make sure that you go online to themoneyhour.com. Make sure you catch Denise's my conversation with her, because it's just really great information. And Denise, I want to ask you, you'd spoken about predictions about Washington State being strong preference for the investors from China. We were talking about why we've seen the investors in China, the increase on that. So why here? Why Washington?
Well, first of all, the Chinese buyers are very, very educated. They're very smart. And primarily, if you go back the last 5 years, 10 years, their preference, the number one area that they love to buy was in California. But what's happened is because there has been so much concern in the last couple of years over water in California, what's happening is those investors are rethinking that, and they're coming up the I-5 corridor, and they're landing right here in Washington State because we're green, we're beautiful, we have great, we've got great, strong employment in, the Puget Sound region. So they're looking at that, and what I've seen just in the last year and a half alone is a really large increase from the Chinese buyer buying in Washington State versus even in California. Now, California is still their number one choice.
Okay.
Washington is their second choice. And, if I predict 5 years out, I'm going to say that Washington is definitely going to be giving, California a run for its money. And a couple of things that you have to look at is that, one of the things that the Chinese buyer loves is they love some space. And, they are buying in the suburbs, and they're buying great locations. And, they love Washington State just because of the green factor, and they feel that it's a safer bet because of the whole water thing. But what's really interesting is that because so many of the Chinese buyer is buying for the purpose of purchasing a primary residence, they're finding that some parts of California are just very, very congested. And they're moving a little bit away from that, and they're choosing to put their dollars here. And they've got the cash to do it.
Yes.
And they also love the business opportunities that the Puget Sound region offers. So we see Washington State, particularly Seattle, Bellevue, those areas really benefiting from the Chinese buyer. Now, on the flip side, somebody listening might say, well, wait a minute, I don't want all this foreign investment coming into the area because that means they're going to buy up real estate, and that means it's going to increase house prices. Now, if you're a seller listening right now, you could get excited about this because that's actually true. Prices will go up because of this. If you're a buyer, what I'm telling buyers right now is get out there and buy a property now.
Before, and then take advantage of them going up.
Before those interest rates go up, and before we have more, also before the Canadian dollar gets better, because when the Canadian dollar gets better, that's going to bring those buyers back into the marketplace. We're going to continue to have the buyers coming to Washington State from China. The other thing is, the worse the news gets about water shortages and drought in California, the more we are finding people are migrating from California to Washington State. So for a buyer, I'm saying this is a great opportunity right now to buy. And even though in the Seattle region, I understand there are multiple offers. I get that. But honestly, it's not going to get better. The other thing we have to think about is the new the alliance between the Port of Tacoma and the Port of Seattle and the growth that that's going to bring. So again, I see house prices continuing to rise. Absolutely.
Yeah, so definitely, as Denise said, the interest rates are low, the cost of money, and eventually they are going to have to go up. And, why not get into a property now and take advantage of this continued appreciation that we're going to see, especially with the foreign buyers coming in. So you've talked about the price range is that 800 plus and mainly buying in the east side. Seattle is their preference area. What about types of properties? Are they, buying mainly single-family homes, or is there a style that's more common, new construction versus resale? What are you seeing there?
Well, they're buying yes, and yes, all of the above, which is really interesting. But the one thing that they are doing is I am seeing a lot of the higher-end properties, the larger properties, they're buying them as multi-generational housing compounds almost. So they're not afraid
the same as the Indian.
That's
Indians
right.
are.
They're not afraid of the big home. Okay. And, the McMansions are being bought and purchased. I call them the McMansions, but they are being purchased up by the Chinese buyer. They're not afraid of that. And whereas a number of years ago, we were seeing, the large stuff sitting on the market for a while, And now we're finding that they're actually very attracted to that.
Yes. And so you talked about that, especially with the Chinese buyers that are coming in, more so than maybe your Indian clients and definitely the Canadian clients. But with the Chinese, they're coming in and paying cash for these properties. So what kind of challenges is that putting on people that are trying to compete when they're getting financing?
Well, that's a great question. Cash is hard to compete against, but
Yes.
A lot of times what I'm finding that for the listing agent right now, so if the listing agent is selling a house and they have multiple offers coming in, sometimes the cash from the foreign buyer almost scares the seller a little bit because they're like, wait a minute, it's a foreign buyer, and is their money really here, and can they really do this, and what about immigration? And they get all worried about that. So what I'm telling my clients, I'm telling agents, just make sure all that is verified.
Yes.
And so there is advantages and there's also disadvantages for sure.
Got it. So we've talked about China, Canadian, Indian, United Kingdom. Is there any other countries that you see that are going to be looking at Washington and deciding that this is a place that they want to either buy vacation, an actual investment property, or their primary? Or are these mainly the ones that we're looking at?
So those are the big ones.
Okay.
The BRIC, there's a number of other countries that are investing in the United States. I call them the BRIC countries, B for Brazil, R for Russia, I for India, and then China. So although I haven't talked too much about Brazil and I haven't talked too much about Russia, a lot of that investment is on the East Coast, and it's definitely down to the South. So we're not going to address that today for this, but the big unknown here is California. We don't know exactly how the water and all of the media attention around drought and water, how that will affect, the mindset of the California homeowner that says, you know what, especially the retiree that says, I'm not bound here anymore by a job.
Yes.
Hey, I'm going to go somewhere where, I can, and our prices in many areas are prices that they're used to coming from California. So they're coming here and it's not out of line for them. So all they're doing is they're making a safer investment, believing that they can get out of the water issues that they may have challenges with. And there's many cities, by the way. I have family members in Ojai, California, and if you look at the drought issues they've had in that region alone and how that has negatively affected the cost of real estate. So a lot of people are sitting back going, I'm worried about my retirement if my retirement is tied up in my house. So that's why they're making the decision to come north.
Okay. So we've got 2 minutes here before I got to wrap up the show, Denise, and I would love it if you could share kind of some of your quick thoughts on trends in housing and tell my buyers what's going on with homes today.
Okay. So the hottest trends in buyers right now is the luxury buyer is moving from size to quality. They want things high quality. They want things personalized. They want to make custom changes. They are looking for traditional exteriors, but very much more modern interiors. They're looking for large kitchen islands, upgraded appliances. We're talking about convection ovens, steam ovens, speed ovens, conventional ovens, built-in coffee-making systems, Wi-Fi-enabled home management systems, Wi-Fi-enabled security, Wi-Fi-enabled lighting, Wi-Fi-enabled locks, which, by the way, I have, and I absolutely love them. Architectural details like crown molding, copper ceilings, plank wood stone fireplaces. They want multiple tech stations. The wiring and the electrical in the house is extremely important. They also want dog grooming areas. If you got a mudroom, don't build a mudroom without putting a sink, even if you got one in the laundry room. They are going for quartz, even above granite in some places. They're downsizing from their larger main residence, and now what they're doing is they're opting to buy a second, third, and fourth home. They are wanting bedrooms that, even all the guest bedrooms now, they want to have bathrooms en suite. They want less formal space. They want more common space. They want outdoor living. So don't even think about building a new house if you're not going to provide outdoor living. They want the master bedroom opening out to the outdoors, guest quarters, spa-like baths, and closet organizational systems are a big thing. And, overall that kitchen, again, is a big deal. Upgraded appliance packages. And most importantly, they're looking for the smart home and the smart home package. So that's just a little bit. I hope that was done in 2 minutes, but I hope that gave you enough.
For Denise, for an answer for you in 2 minutes, that you did very, very well. And I just want to wrap it up there because I wrote down 3 things that I thought of: spoiled, but efficient. And you said it, smart. I mean, spoiled, efficient, and smart. I mean, that kind of wraps it up of what they're expecting. Denise, thank you again so much for coming in, as busy as you are, spending time with me. And definitely I've got to make sure that I've got some blocks on for 2016 on the calendar before you get all booked up again.
Absolutely. And I'd love to share with your listeners my predictions for 2016.
I know. I kind of left it there as a tease to save that for our next one. So we've got to make sure we get you back in soon. So Denise, thank you again. This is your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, signing off for the day. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And I look forward to talking more about money with you. Same time, same place, right here on 1150 AM KKNW.